they don't all come in peace. Some of them, they have less than honorable intentions and they're already here. In the world of Dandadan, aliens, they aren't just flying saucers and gray skin. They are grotesque, in some cases godlike, and they are terrifyingly real. Each of them is more and more bizarre than the one before them and more dangerous in a lot of the cases. But who exactly are they? Where do they come from? And what do they want with the Earth in particular? This newest Anime Explained video will break down every alien in Dandadan and reveal the chilling truth behind each of them. As always, this video will contain some spoilers, but I will keep it limited to only what you absolutely need to know about each alien so as to not greatly impact your viewing experience for season 2 of the anime as well as future seasons moving forward. So in order to break down each individual alien, we must first do a brief overview of each alien race and what makes the aliens in Dandadan so unique compared to the other species that we meet. In the world of Dandadan, the universe includes 666 known alien species, and while the aliens are mostly known to each other, humanity has basically been left in the dark for the most part about life existing on other planets. The humans who do know are either conspiracy theorists who nobody takes seriously, or if they do know the truth about aliens, to an outsider, they're still looked at as a conspiracy theorist nut job. Examples of humans who you would say are aware of alien presence are people that have encountered aliens directly or those who are just spiritually aware. There are 3 reasons why aliens behave how they do regarding humans. The first is the empty space traps that aliens use when they start throwing hands at people like ayase who have a high spiritual power, and the only way to escape is either for the alien to willingly deactivate the empty space trap or for them to be incapacitated through combat. Any damage done inside of the space to the area of the battle itself doesn't affect the real world setting. The second reason is aliens will choose to use disguises to blend in with humans. So there could be aliens walking amongst you side by side, even working at your local convenience store, asking you for your wages, and you'd never know it. The third one is likely to make your inner conspiracy theorists get worked up, but it's a good old-fashioned government cover-up. They don't want you to know the truth. Aliens are also way more advanced than humans, especially when it comes to technology, evident by the obvious weapons as well as space travel, but also use of nanoskin and teleportation devices. There are, as of now, 5 identified races in terms of characters who we interact with. They are the Mr. Mantis shrimp race, the Serpo race, the Kur race, the Sumerian race, and the Jet Booster Kur race. The Mr. Mantis shrimp race is a warrior race who have crab heads and human-like bodies. They are extremely powerful and capable of both fighting on land as well as underwater, but if you fight them underwater, they have a natural advantage due to the amp that they get. That being said, the lack of gills make their time underwater limited. The Serpo race is the one that you met in episode 1 of the anime, and you have likely seen thousands of memes of them since. Dandadan, unfortunately, is like Chainsaw Man. It's one of those series that get taken out of context for memes. They are a male species coming from the same planet named after them. They have extremely advanced technology, but their cybernetic tools are installed in their groins. One of the many weird aspects of Dandadan that out of context don't make sense, but when you read the series, it's one of those funky things where you see so much weird out-of-pocket stuff, you don't even think twice about something like this. Not when the manga has things like typhoons in the sky and sharks on a plane. They also have the powers of psychokinesis. In their true form, they have a slug-like appearance, but their human form is one that looks like your stereotypical male gooner. The Kur race is a race of octopus aliens who live out in deep space. They are dead set on taking over planets. Their goal is mass production and feeding beings who live on the planets they conquer to the big mamas. The Sumerians are a race that Bamora is from, someone who you should be meeting in season 2 of the anime, depending on where the anime stops. They look very closely like humans if you ignore the giant antenna on their head. When the Kur invaded their planet, they were pushed to near extinction very quickly, and Bamora ended up being sent to Earth as the lone surviving child of her race, which makes for a pretty emotional reveal when you learn the full context behind what happened, which you're 100% 100% going to need your tissues ready when you get to that flashback. Now, the Jet Booster Kur race is one that looks human, but they too have something that makes them stand out, like the last race we just went over. They have pointy ears. The Jet Booster Exosuit Kur and her husband are unique in appearance for that reason. Her species was wiped out when the Kur invaded her planet, and she joined the army in order to survive, and she planned to bide her time to wipe out the Emperor to avenge her husband and her species, which is almost as patiently calculated as me telling you hit the like button, subscribe, and enable notifications. So now that we have that out of the way, let's look at each individual alien that we have in Dandadan. We're going to be starting things off with Rokuro Serpo. He's someone that you've likely seen by now, and he's aligned himself with Momo at this point where the anime is in season 2. He was deemed a defector traitor by his people and now fills the role of a massive support character for our heroes. One interesting fact about him is that he's the only one of his clones that has eyes that make him easy to identify, and he has 2 massive scars on both sides of his face. As you know, instead of going along with the plan to allow his clones to capture Momo, he made a truce with Momo after the event involving Imotako Kur. Rokuro stands out amongst his race because he's capable of compassion and acting off of some form of honor, like we saw when he brokered the truce, but also when he planned to use the needle he kept tucked away to heal Momo's injuries, and he ended up saving Bamora's life when she was fatally injured. He's been shown willing to trust Momo, a human, something that obviously won't sit well with his people. Like when he gave Momo the job to destroy the Sepro data that the Kur had been after. Following his banishment, we do see him in a support role as well as in a comedy role where he has to work a low-wage job and he's constantly asking people what they make per hour. We do see at times, like when he sees Momo crying, that he has a curiosity about human emotions. Granted, he doesn't understand them very well by his own admittance. Rokuro also has nanoskin at his disposal, which allows him to shape his nanoskin body in a variety of useful ways. Ways in which he can use the nanoskin that comes in handy is how quickly he can disguise himself, or he can make tools that can be used to gain information, or even weapons that can fire off laser beams if need be. However, when talking about Rokuro, we also have to talk about the other Serpo. So they are the race that hails from the Zeta system, and you got introduced to them in season 1 of the anime. Since they are an all-male race, they can't reproduce in ways that a human can. You know, where man meets woman, rises up woman, they go out on a date, they get married, they start a family. This race has to clone itself, and this has led to them looking to go to Earth to abduct humans and take their reproductive organs for the purpose of trying to reproduce. And then they got fascinated with people who have spiritual powers, so people like Momo Ayase. When they shed their disguise, they take on the appearance of a humanoid slug, and they have black markings all over their body. As you saw in season 1, they are extremely hostile towards humans, and they have zero empathy or concern for those who are being hired by them. They view them as disposable. As manufactured clones, the Serpo, they have artificial bodies that are predominantly mechanical yet partially organic, evident by their ability to bleed. They are capable of surviving otherwise major bodily harm, including the loss of their limbs or their entire lower halves. Their cyberkinetic tools that they have, they are a retractable needle they use to extract reproductive organs from human females via sexual intercourse, which likely would have been Momo's fate in episode 1 had things not happened the way they did. But they also have a cable that can be used to amp power. However, they also have a method to get the reproductive organs of human males too. This method is just as painful. They have scissors for a good old-fashioned snip. They also have psychokinesis, which allows them to make a psychic field, manipulate brainwaves and people and objects. When they manipulate brainwaves, it's to get their target in a super hyper-aroused state so that they can extract their reproductive organs. Now that we've talked about fusion, it's only right that we talk about the Serpo Dova Demon Nessie next. Created via a fusion of Dover Demon and Nessie as a last-ditch effort to take down Momo, Aira, and Okarun, it's extremely powerful and it's extremely fierce in combat. When the battle with the three heroes we mentioned earlier takes place, Momo was the one that it viewed as being the most dangerous and it wanted to kill her as a high priority. It has Dover Demon Mantis's shrimp arms and can use the strong style 24 transformation. It has even more augmented strength due to the fusion as well. The benefits of the arms is the ability to use physical attacks along with shockwaves that can be produced by the attacks on top of a 10 times amp in strength when underwater, and due to how big Nessie is, the shockwaves that are produced on a much higher level. The only weakness that the creature has is that it couldn't handle its attacks when it was out of water, which resulted in its arms ripping apart. Another weakness is that the blasts that get fired off, which are extremely powerful, they require a pretty decent amount of time to recharge after using them every so often. This is now where we move on to Mr. Mantis Shrimp. Also known as Dover Demon, he is a character who we just loosely reference. He was hired by the Sepro to capture Okarun and took on work in order to get the money to pay for his son's much needed blood transfusion, as you saw in season 1 of the anime. So he isn't really a villain as you've seen, which is why Momo's grandmother didn't have any issues in helping with his son's recovery. Mr. Mantis Shrimp is a rather complex individual. When we first meet him, he was aggressive, yet he was also a very talkative combatant. He was regularly singing or boasting about his strength. He was basically yapping all the time. He was also very differential towards the Sepro, who were his employers, frequently apologizing for his less than desirable performance, obviously because he needed the money for his son. However, some of it's also because by the standards of his species, he is weak. Also known as Peeny Weenie, he's lived a life of hardships. His wife passed away due to an illness, which she passed on to their child. Because their child requires regular transfusions of blood due to this illness, Mr. Mantis Shrimp takes on a lot of dangerous jobs to fund them. Father of the Year. His relative weakness saw him get spurned by his people and ridiculed by his employers, which obviously hurt his pride. As such, when the family attended to his injuries and provided him with a meal in order to aid his recovery and offered to get a cow for his son's blood transfusion, again, Dandadan is weird. You heard me right. A cow was used for his son's blood transfusion. Mr. Mantis Shrimp was overwhelmed with emotion and vowed to aid them however he could, and he obviously continued to do so. As we see with season 1 of the anime, when he fights Aira, the guy is more than capable when it comes to throwing hands in a fight, but due to her super high agility, he isn't able to land a hit on her until one of the Sepro step in. His blows, they are as powerful as you would expect, capable of breaking walls, and that makes his boxing style that he uses an appropriate moment to say that he's got a mean right hook. His jet punch is also his strongest attack, where he puts all his energy into the attack and it dishes out an extreme amount of damage, not just to the target, but the area, which makes it crazy when you consider, by his own words, he's weak compared to the other members of his species. He's also able to use the transformation of his race, but while there are clear benefits like shields and flippers and a clear increase in power, he doesn't have gills that allow him to breathe on the water, so he has to come up, otherwise he drowns. He's limited to only 24 seconds in this form, but if he takes a Sepro energy drink, he can stay in that transformation for 24 hours, and when he's underwater, he gets a 10 times increase in power, which is very noticeable. Now we're going to move on to one of my favorite characters in the manga, Bamora. So depending on where you are in the anime, Bamora is either going to be a character that you enjoy or she's going to make you briefly dislike Momo Ayase due to the period of that part of the story, strongly implying that Momo was jealous of her when it came to Okarun. As previously stated, she is the last surviving child of her race, following her planet being invaded. When she was sent to Earth, it was with the intention to find a husband who would be worthy of her and help her ensure that her race would continue to exist, which led to her setting her sights on Okarun, which naturally put her at odds with Momo Ayase. She's very friendly and sensitive, especially once we get to see her in her true form and she isn't wearing her kaiju suit where she has that giant kaiju head on, but there's a bigger reason for why the suit looks like how it does. We'll touch on that later. As you would expect, being the survivor of a trauma like she went through, it did do a number on her and it causes her to have some confidence issues. And more more than once in the series, we see signs of how deeply she's been affected by growing up in a war zone. That being said, when push comes to shove, she's as brave as they come, shown when she fought alongside Momo and company to defend Earth from the Kur invasion. Over time, she comes to realize that there is more to looking for worth when it comes to a husband than just being strong, which previously that's what she thought she needed, someone to be strong enough to take her down in battle in order for them to be worthy of being a husband. Her exosuit allows her to take on the appearance of the god of Sumir, which is the kaiju appearance. The suit does offer a decent amount of protection despite the kaiju-like appearance. Bamora has the ability to quickly analyze the environment via the heads-up display, and the heart-pounding mode allows her to enter into empty space. When she's in the kaiju suit, she has enormous power in all of her punches, able to fight even humans who have yokai powers and withstand their attacks. Now, this is going to bring us on to one of the most impactful characters of Bamora's life, her adoptive mother, Banga. So she is the adoptive mother of Bamora. She's a former cook at the royal palace of their homeland before the Kur invasion began, and it resulted in her joining an all-female resistance against them. Early on, when the Kur invaded their home, she was skeptical of her people, rightfully viewing them as naive and placing blame on them for their planet's ongoing destruction and their blind belief that their god would protect them. That being said, she does from time to time seek out prayer at various points in the story, and she has a deep dislike for men initially because she views any bravery by them as meaningless posturing and that they're all really cowards inside. After her homeland fell, she became more self-reliant, and for a time she was willing to sacrifice others if it meant saving her own skin. But when the time came, she ended up forming a deep bond with Bamora and played a key role in getting Bamora to be the same person who could be sent to Earth, leading to one hell of an emotional scene. And we see the impact that being a maternal figure to Bamora had on her, because she found herself rediscovering some faith in her people, calling for the men she had previously hated to join them in their resistance, and telling Bamora to seek out a male partner on Earth to continue their bloodline. In terms of powers, she doesn't have any, but she does have combat suits and guns to fight. And she was the first person to use the exosuit that we see Bamora use, which is part of why, for as many jokes as I'll make about not liking the design of the suit, this is one of those times where once you learn why the suit looks like it does and how Bamora got it, you can't help but appreciate that Bamora wears it. Now, when talking about Banga, we also have to talk about Ajay as well. So she's one of the characters that we saw fighting alongside Banga. She is very optimistic, and she also took very strongly to Bamora, extremely strongly to her. She was also very supportive of her allies, shown when she agreed to join Tomo on their trip to see the ocean before she died, despite knowing that there was a good chance that they would die. She even goes out of her way to save Bamora to ensure that she would live, making it clear she needs to survive because she is the last child of their planet, showing a strong selflessness for her character. Outside of that, there isn't much else to go over outside the fact she uses a rifle. While her character is only in the story briefly, she does have a pretty big impact story-wise on Bamora. This now takes us to Tomo, the other woman from Bamora's homeland. She's pretty cheerful, but also very mature, since we are told that she has participated in several fights against the space globalists. Still, she jokes around a lot with her friend Ajay and tries to be optimistic despite their dire situation. She gets nervous when they don't have any Sumerians at one of their meetings, and she still shows bravery while she protects Banga and Bamora during their escape. Instead of waiting to pass away in a cave, she had determination to continue to advance against the Kur in order to see the ocean, which she had never seen because she had lived on a small mountain town. Her strong mental strength makes her refuse to die without seeing it, even when the odds are stacked against her. She is one of those characters that perseveres and has the guts to never give up. Like Ajay, she acts as a sort of a pseudo-mother or a pseudo-aunt to Bamora, willing to throw her own life away for what is the last child of their planet. She's also seen smoking as a way to deal with the stress, which when you're dealing with an alien invasion, who ain't gonna smoke a pack or two? Now, when we talk about pseudo mamas, it's only right that we talk about a character that has the word mama in their name. This, of course, being Big Mamas. So, big mammas are the creatures that the Kur tame for the purposes of making exosuits to deploy in war, which are made when they consume living organisms. The big mammas, they are large in size and they're all identical in appearance. They possess a very bizarre and deformed physiology, having a humanoid figure with breast and pectoral fins for arms and an anal canal with a large bulge possessing 3 miniature legs on each side. They have dots located around the sides of their neck. The muscle that connects from the pectoral fins to the shoulders and the breast and their abdomen. Outside of them being used for exosuits, there's not much to talk about with them. Now, this is where I do want to kind of move on to Count Saint Germain, a character that you won't be meeting until later on in the anime. At this pacing, probably in a season 4 at the pace the anime is going, which for the purposes of this video, I will be very mindful of major spoilers. But for now, let's break down our newest alien in the series. So he is a collector of all things paranormal, and his goal is to acquire the Dandadan, which, to avoid spoilers, I won't say what it is, but it is a huge spoiler. He is an affiliate of the Kur, and he works undercover at Momo and Okarun's high school. As of right now, he is the current major villain of the story, and what sets him apart from others is that he is highly intelligent. He plans things out very methodically, and he's also somebody that has a cruel streak to him. However, as you expect, he does have some personal quirks to his character, like the way that he likes to drag out the word nice. He views human life as being too short, and he's got a strong curiosity for everything paranormal. And like other characters in the series, you do run into the gag line that he too joins the list of characters that are after Okarun's family jewels, i.e. his testicles. But he has his own reasons for why he goes after them, because most of the things he does, he has a plan for why he's doing so. In this case, it was to bestow yokai powers to somebody else. His powers include a sixth sense that detects incoming objects and easily identify the presence of someone. This is on top of him being extremely fast and powerful, being quick enough to easily avoid simultaneous attacks from yokai and a crowd of mind-controlled characters. Then there's his sword. He's an expert swordsman, and he's got more than one set of blades. First, you have his katana, and then you have his kogai that is inside his jacket, which contains several dozens of yokai powers that he's extracted, which he uses for battle, but he's limited to only using one at a time. Then he has his Ashura knives, which are able to extract the powers of a person under certain conditions that are met, which is why he's after our heroes at this part of the manga story, at least as of this recording. Now that we've covered the current big bad of the manga, let's rewind and let's go back to the Flatwood monster, one of the characters that we meet very early on in season 1 of the anime. As a lackey of the Sepro, it basically did what it was asked, which is him trying to take the reproductive organs of Momo and Okarun. He originally popped up in Virginia, West Virginia to be precise, before he ended up in Japan. As you remember, he uses his extreme brute strength for sumo wrestling style attacks, and he produces a mist-like substance that causes nosebleeds. He also has the ability to generate new limbs in battle as well, like we see when Momo and Okarun manage to destroy his legs. We now move on to Imotako Kur, as well as a bunch of Kur characters from here on out. Imotako Kur is part of the advanced unit of the Kur when they were beginning their invasion of Earth. He does mix it up with Momo in battle, and he does give her a hard time because of his ability to phase through objects due to his body existing in another dimension. But after Momo thinks back to the lessons that her grandmother was teaching her, she's able to take him down in a fight. Another notable power of his is that when his tentacles penetrate the Sepro, he can transform them into his lackeys to do his bidding. We now move on to the head Exosuit Kur, which was also part of the advanced unit. After the advanced unit arrived on Earth in search of Bamora, the team commenced an attack on the Sepros and consequently ended up attacking Okarun and Ira, Gigi, and Momo. Okarun immediately damages the head exosuit, causing it to burn and fall to the ground before he eventually does get defeated and gets his ball stolen. But he saved Mr. Mantis Shrimp, who brings him and the injured head exosuit Kur back to the ayase home. During the invasion of Sumir, we also see the head exosuit Kur guarding the big mama that's in the forest when the big mama was being used to produce exosuits. Now, this is where we move on to another Kur Advanced Unit member, which, if you can't tell, the Kur, we don't have a lot of lore about them, so these next few sections are going to be pretty quick. So we have Hastur. He's greedy, he's possessive, and he steals whatever he takes his interest in at the time. He can be cold-hearted and sadistic. When he learns that Bamora escaped, he makes it a point to have a hunt set up so he can track her down, which is in line with his personality. He's quick to try and play mind games in order to get what he wants, and he's not above, say, using a tactic like torture, like he tried to use that on Banga to get her to do what he wanted. For more than a century, he's been the guy that's orchestrated the Kur invasions across multiple planets, including the one where they invaded the Sumerian planet. His exosuit gives him the ability to carve out space while in combat, and it has its own pocket dimensions that can store whatever it is that he wants that is swiped away while using the suit. The suit also has a tail that can be used to impale people. This is where we move on to Jet Booster Exosuit Kur, who's part of the Advanced Unit. Now, this is going to be our first female Kur on the list, or at least it should be. She once lived a very normal life on her home planet with her partner. However, it was soon destroyed following the Kur's arrival on her home world, where they conquered it, and she forcibly had to join the Empire like so many others. She joined the army. Driven by the destruction of her world, she survived, and she infiltrated the army. Over the course of more than a century, she plotted while taking part in invasions and genocide, trying to prove her loyalty because she was going to make the Emperor pay. However, when she does get on Earth, it does become clear that she's not like the other Kur that we see in the series. In terms of abilities, she has her own exosuit, and she's a master of hand-to-hand combat with enough speed to hold her own against Okarun in his transformed state, and even arguably stalemate or bare minimum fight relative to Evil Eye. Her exosuit can produce jets to amp up her combat abilities, which makes her strikes way more powerful. She also has a propulsion device that allows her to take flight as well. She can also supercharge the suit when it's spun. This brings us to Sudao Ko Kur. So there's not a lot about this character that we know. He's never really been seen outside of his exosuit. We do see him early on in the Space Globalist arc as a part of the group that takes on Gigi and Ira. Later on in the arc, Gigi does manage to get one up on Sudao Ko Kur and takes him down, using the training that Momo's grandmother gave him in the form of the Evil Eye gun. Outside of flight and a rifle, which is a standard railgun rifle, there's not much else to talk about with the character. So we're going to knock out the last few Kurs before moving on to the remaining aliens. So you have the Mantis Exosuit Kur next. The Mantis Exosuit Kur participated in the invasion of Sumir. He guarded over the Sumerian men to have them fed to the Big Mama in front of the pyramid. He later entered it with the rest of the advanced unit, and he threatened to torture Ajah if Banga did not activate the royal slab, which only a Sumerian can decipher. In this portion of the story, where he's on Earth, we see him mix it up with Okarun for possession of his balls, and is later shown throwing hands with Mr. Mantis Shrimp, where he gets a very nasty surprise in terms of how strong Mr. Mantis Shrimp is when he's underwater. Outside of that, he's not much of a major player, so we're going to move on. Now, we're going to go with Takomi Shi Kur for the next one. At the start of the Kur invasion, he manages to trap Ira and his mechanical cylinders, and he activates a shockwave field. When he does get into the final battle with Gigi, he does end up getting completely overwhelmed by the Evil Eye gun that Gigi uses. Outside of that, there isn't much else to talk about. There aren't any special powers or abilities worth mentioning. This brings us to Takonoka Patcho Kur. He's got advanced defensive and offensive abilities, but he's also bloodlusted and reckless when fighting, which makes for a bad combination. His main target during the invasion is Ira, and she eventually takes him down. While he himself is strong, since he can scale to Ira, his role is, in so many words, fodder and not really worth exploring unless there's a Dandadan data book that gives us more info. Koshin Jo Kur is next. We see him when the advanced unit arrives on Earth in search of Bamora, even when using ambushes, like we see with the invasion of Samir. He's not a character that really stands out in my opinion. In terms of weapons, the only thing that does make him a formidable character is that he's got a super heavy exosuit, because he has all this mech stuff with him that uses rocket launchers and rail guns and Gatling guns. But again, I personally don't see much in terms of how impressive he is. Now, Kowasa Kur is next. During the Kur invasion, Kowasa Kur proved to be agile and quite a strong member of the advanced unit. He attempted to extract Gigi's energy, thinking he could drain him of all of his energy and turn him into an empty shell. However, he was overconfident in doing so, and he failed to realize that Gigi just had way too much for him to drain, and so his suit ended up exploding from overheating. He's got 6 mechanical arms used in combat, and he mixes it up with Ira, showing that he is a capable fighter using them. He also has the ability to absorb energy from his targets, but as we mentioned earlier, if he absorbs too much, then everything goes boom boom. This now brings us to Chiquita. He's the son of Peeny Weenie, who we went over earlier. After developing the same illness of his mother that killed her, Chiquita was left to be looked after by his father, who took on all these dangerous jobs to deal with this treatment, which led to him getting in bed with the Sepro. Outside of being very playful but also dependable when called upon, there isn't much to go over with this character because he's such a minor presence in the story, but it is worth noting that he's one hell of a pilot for his age. Something that you should be seeing in the anime now. This is where we're going to move on to Mandrill. So this is an alien that attacked Momo and Okarun in the one-shot manga. The Mandrill alien's very self-confident, narcissistic if you really want to go there. He perceives himself as being superior, claims he has a 300 IQ, and he will damn sure let you know that he's got a high IQ. When his plans go according to plan, he's got one hell of an ego. He has a very low opinion of humans. He views them as being primitive. However, when he meets Momo, he does change his opinion because he sees that she's pretty smart despite being a human. Outside of that, there's not much else to talk about with this character, so we're going to move on to Ludris, the final alien on this list. He's the alien who travels through space, and meeting him is something that really comes in handy in the series. You first meet him in the Evil Eye arc, when Ludris is found in the ruins of the ayase residence. Momo and her grandmother immediately send him flying with kicks, which definitely pisses him off. This leads to Mr. Mantis Shrimp introducing them to Ludris, who is a construction specialist. This leads to Momo apologizing. And we see Ludris and Mr. Shrimp in a very comical scene where Momo kicking the guy is basically written off as, hey, it's an honor to be kicked by such a beautiful female. In short, the best thing that this character provides is the nanoskin allows him to rebuild the house very quickly, and that nanoskin does come in handy. Well, that's going to be it for every alien on Dandadan. Obviously, some have more lore than others. Your time here on Anime Explained doesn't have to be over, so click here on the left to check out more Dandadan videos, or click here on the right to check out the other videos from the Anime Explained channel.